All right. We'll now continue the committee meeting with the conceptual review of the design of a streetscape master plan for reconstruction of Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. We will not hear public testimony or vote on this project today for standard committee meeting procedure. We only hear public testimony in public hearing items. If you would like to submit written testimony on this project, please email the commission at designcommission@cityhall.nyc.gov. It will be distributed to commissioners and saved for the record. Welcome, Nick, and present away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Nick Patati. I'm Deputy Director of Urban Design for New York City DOT. I'm joined by my colleague Casey at DOT, as well as Terry at PDB. And we're going to go through this project. I'm going to keep my intro relatively short. I just want to set the context in that this is somewhat of a unique project in terms of where we're at and how it's being developed, in that it's a capital project scope development. You've seen some of these obviously from other agencies, but certainly for DOT, DDC, for the very, very complex streetscape or public space projects like Grand Army Plaza. We, in some cases, are able to do this where OMB funds us for preliminary design, right? So there's no construction funding, there's no final design funding yet for this project, but we have money to develop preliminary design and then use that to get basically a better idea of what the project is going to cost, go through an immense amount of community engagement that it's very touch on, and really get to sort of the foundational level, and then be able to take that forward into further design. So there's still a lot here that's very early phases. We wanted to come to at this early stage to present what is, we think, a very, very exciting project, one that I think the administration is very excited about, and really get your early feedback on some of the major design moves. Some of the detailed design and stuff that we would love to talk about in more detail will be coming. So this is, again, first step in a long journey. And so with that, I'm going to turn over to Casey to run us through where we're at.
Good afternoon. As Nick said, my name is Casey Grow. I'm the Director of Public Realm Design at New York City DOT. I'll be quickly going through kind of an overview and some of the operations of the project. So just for reference, I think everyone's aware of where Grand Army Plaza is situated. It's in Brooklyn, at the very north end of Prospect Park, and we are looking at the plaza in its entirety, including Plaza Street East and West. A little bit of background, as Nick said, this is a expense-funded study, so there's no capital construction funding committed at this point. But if it does move forward, we will be coming back to you all for a preliminary, potentially even another conceptual review for PDC, as well as we go through final design, updated analysis, and eventually construction procurement. But this is the kind of summation of about 4 years of work from the agencies to come to this proposal. Just for some context, this is also happening as a lot of other initiatives are going on in the city. Shown in green is the study locations, including Grand Army Plaza, Vanderbilt Avenue, and Underhill Avenue. In relation, we are also looking at how this project could work together with other initiatives, such as the Flatbush Avenue Bus Priority Project, capital project at Flatbush and Atlantic Terminal. A lot of the outcomes coming out of the Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use Plan, which was a rezoning by DCP last year. There's a lot of commitments from the city to do projects on Atlantic Avenue, Dean and Bergen, and Bedford Avenue, as well as an upcoming capital project at Washington Avenue and Lowry Triangle, as well as Washington Avenue at the Botanic Garden. So a lot happening in the neighborhood, and we want to be thinking comprehensively, but we'll be just showing Grand Army Plaza for this presentation. DOT has a lot of history at this location. We've done a lot of in-house work over the years by changing to how vehicles use Prospect Park with their elimination in 2017, as well as a major in-house project in 2021 or 2011, where we converted a lot of the roadway space into the existing plaza that you see to really kind of simplify operations. But the next step is a capital reconstruction of this. So this is all temporary, nothing's permanent. Kind of leveling this all up would require a capital reconstruction. From historical context, want to note that Grand Army Plaza has changed throughout the years. It is not the original design that was originally envisioned. There was the existing circular fountain in the 1880s. The arch was added in the late 1800s. The entrance ensemble by McKim, Mead, and White was added. Vehicles were introduced. Trolleys came and went. The plaza was reconstructed for the subway. So there's been a lot of changes throughout the decades, culminating in what we see today, which is a very vehicular-dominated area with limited pedestrian space, limited high-quality pedestrian gathering space here. So we just wanted to kind of take this project into the next level while kind of respecting the historical trend of the entire plaza over time. So maintaining the berms, the fountain, and the memorial arch. But really honing in on the southern plaza. When it was originally built, it was a very open area. People were able to freely mill about. There was no vehicles at the time. It then transitioned to a very vehicular-dominated space where almost the entirety of Grand Army Plaza was for private vehicles. And then today, where we do have the existing pedestrian space and public space on the southern end where the market exists today. Just for context, while we are looking at the entire plaza area, there are some things that won't really be changed. So the Bailey Fountain Oval, the Memorial Arch, and Prospect Park itself are remaining unchanged. The berms and the entrance ensemble, we would look to either restore or rehabilitate, but maintaining their existing form. So really what we're focusing on is more of the kind of roadways and public space of this, not proposing any major changes to some of those more historical elements of the plaza. Existing conditions, Grand Army Plaza exists in a residential neighborhood at the northern end of Prospect Park. It also is a bit of a cultural hub. You have the Botanic Garden, Prospect Park, and the Brooklyn Public Library kind of forming these very civic-oriented areas. There's also a lot of historical markers here, shown here on the right, ranging from the Memorial Arch itself, which is kind of the key iconic moment, as well as several other statues, the fountain, and the entrance ensemble with the eagle statues. Grand Army Plaza today, it functions essentially as an elongated traffic circle, pretty complex movements, but the arch and the fountain are relatively separated from the park itself. So to kind of cross into this area, which is a very premier civic moment, you do have to cross multiple lanes of traffic as vehicles are coming on both sides of the oval. Just a couple photos just to show reference some of the state of condition of some of the spaces. Some of the pavement is in pretty poor shape. We have temporary painted spaces that are frequently abused by vehicles. There's a lot of different materials here. There's the herringbone brick at the southern end of the plaza, the big painted area that feels very desolate and open. A lot of crosswalks, complicated traffic movements, and you are separated from the arch from the park by 4 lanes of traffic. Again, more photos of the existing site conditions, the mix of materials with bluestone pavers, hex, concrete sidewalks, painted surfaces. There's kind of a lot going on, and we've categorized all of it. And it is a lot, and there hasn't really been a moment to really rethink what the materials are from a comprehensive standpoint. Things have come and gone, been added. It's been a little bit piecemeal. So this does present an opportunity to kind of pick what are we preserving, what are we using as the new material going forward, to kind of guide the design if this proceeds with a reconstruction. Also, a lot of furniture, mixed match benches, seat walls, kind of a mix of new DOT typical items such as the bus shelter versus more kind of historic natured parks materials, multiple different types of bollards, and then even multiple types of fencing. So using this as an opportunity to create a more cohesive palette of options. Similar with street lighting, a mix of historic landmarked poles as well as more typical historic poles like the Type M and the Type B pole. A couple important views. There's a lot of very key view sheds at Grand Army Plaza. Coming south from the fountain, you see the Memorial Arch with the park in the background. Coming out of the park, your framed view of the arch itself. Coming down Eastern Parkway, a very critical view, as well as coming from Union.
Excuse me. Okay, so just a few more minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to go quickly through these. The plaza today is very desolate. It's very hot. It's not very welcoming. It doesn't really function well as a public space that you use if the market's not there. We want to really reinforce a lot of the programming and partnerships that are happening. Really highlight a lot of the key events here. This is a civic area. There's been protests, marathons. There's the food, the market, as well as holiday events. And I will quickly go through the roadway design before turning it over to Terry. When we started this process, we had 2 options where we would reroute Flatbush Avenue to one side, and then another option where we unified the public space. As part of our community outreach, we did a survey. We had over 1,600 responses, and the kind of decision was to move forward with option B, which is unifying the public spaces. And we had a lot of support from the community in that regard. We made some design edits as we went through this entire process. The key ones here is adding a bike connection on the west side of the oval and adding additional crossings to the oval to increase access into the fountain area. From an operations standpoint, we're looking to drastically simplify operations. There's 3,000 pedestrians in the morning peak hour on the south side, and we're looking to reduce the number of conflict points with vehicles from 24 to 12 to really simplify how people move through the plaza. From a bus perspective, looking at simplifying bus routes to one side of the plaza, which would improve bus travel times by 41%. From a vehicular standpoint, about a third of vehicles use that roadway between the arch and the park today, kind of coming around. We would simply be redirecting them to the other side.
I'm sorry, to interrupt you. Just go back one
Oh,
step.
yeah.
You're gonna reduce, the new design will reduce bus time moving through Grand Army Plaza by 40%.
Yes, correct. Per passenger.
Okay.
And from a vehicular standpoint, a lot of vehicles are coming down Flatbush. We would actually improve travel times by simplifying those operations. Where people coming from Union Street, instead of going directly through the plaza, would need to loop around, would see a slight increase in travel times. It's a longer distance. It's going to take a little bit longer to go. But in general, from an operations standpoint, all trips that are occurring within the plaza today will remain in the plaza under this proposal. From a cycling perspective, reducing the number of intersection waiting points from 11 to 3, so drastically simplifying how you move through on a bike. Right now, you cross the street, wait, cross the street, wait, cross the street, wait. From a routing perspective, a lot of protected infrastructure to the south, which is to the left, coming up from the park. Vanderbilt is a key connection as it moves up towards other routes that lead to the Manhattan Bridge. This would improve the protected bike lane network around Grand Army Plaza, as well as provide a direct connection through the plaza to take some of the pressure off of Plaza Street, which is seeing a significant increase in cycling traffic today. And I will pass it over to Chairman. I'll move out. Yeah.
Optimize the pedestrian and bike circulation on the southern plaza utilizing a unified design. Okay, we're okay. Utilizing, utilizing a unified. Oh, no problem. Okay, so we were tasked with assisting DOT with creating a design for the plaza, a design strategy. And our strategy is based on these tenets: to honor the historic context and elements, to optimize pedestrian and bicycle circulation and connectivity of spaces that make up the Southern Plaza, utilizing a unified design, materiality, and amenities vocabulary. Focus on varied community uses and programming, a design for the space that works. This is really, really important, was creating a design that works at an intimate scale as well as for the very large gatherings that happen here, and create linkages by extending and enhancing the plaza's green through additional planted spaces. 3 alternate design frameworks were developed for presentation to the community and to get feedback. The first one, so again, these are just frameworks. The first was a radial design. The second was a diagonal, what we call the diagonal grove, both of which were a little bit more formal in approach. And the third is what's called the open access, which is a little bit more of a modern interpretation. But the one thing that it did do was it allowed for more substantial planting areas. Community responses, you can see the preferences are shown as a percentage at the bottom of the slide. So the diagonal and the open access were much more preferred. Next slide, please. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but the outcome was really, the community liked the formality of the diagonal design, but what they really appreciated was the increased landscape and planting, particularly tree plantings in the plaza, and how those could help form and create spaces within the plaza, the southern plaza. And what we also developed through the community outreach process was a baseline for amenities that we think are critical, or which we discovered are critical to the plaza. So shade, community was very, very interested in restrooms, biodiversity in the plantings that are provided, an opportunity for art installations, a variety of furnishings, architectural lighting for the plaza, and something to help or assist with climate comfort, some kind of infrastructure that goes beyond just creating shade through new tree plantings. Next.
Terry, just a few more minutes.
Okay. So this is the proposed plan, which, as I said, is a combination of alternative 1 and, or sorry, alternative 2 and 3. So you can really get to see the elimination, what it means to the, with the elimination of the vehicular route, disconnecting the plaza. Next. It's just an enlargement of the southern end. You start to see the added plantings. Next. This view shows how the integration of canopy trees is helping to frame views and starting to create smaller spaces within without obscuring, without obscuring the views of the important historic elements. Next. Section through from south to the Bailey Fountain at the north. Next. And then this was an operational study. We just started to take a look at what's currently used in terms of percentages of space for the various uses and categorize them small, medium, and large based on the amount of approximate capacity. Next. This is the existing circulation, shows you the circulation pedestrian and vehicular, and where there are existing conflicts, both weekdays and Saturdays when the market is in place, the green market. Next. And this is proposed. So you start to see how it gets simplified, conflicts are reduced. Next. Next. Okay, and then we also took a look at currently how the market space is, or how the market uses the space. Started to look at capacity for that. Next. And did some overlays over the new space. So you see we're increasing this southern plaza space by approximately 40%. And you start to see that it creates opportunities for expanding the green market, for inclusion of green spaces. Next. Again, an overlay of how the market could work in the new space. Next. And this is the current existing plan showing you how the disconnect there. And then next, proposed plan showing you how we get that unification of the spaces with just the bikeway coming through the space. Next is the side-by-side comparison of the two.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in at the very end, because I forgot to mention terribly that this has also been a very close collaboration with Parks. We have our colleagues here, as well as Prospect Park Alliance, which has obviously been a key stakeholder. So those have all been really key to the development of this. And again, this is very early in the process. I think we're very interested in your feedback on some of the geometric changes, the changes to the circulation, the mobility, as well as the kind of framework ideas that we're coming up with, so we can take that forward into the next scope. And obviously we'll be back to you with much more development too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. But
I mean, such an incredibly complicated geometric puzzle with all these major avenues coming in and balancing the cars and buses, people, bikes, all the uses and things. So it's, I mean, you can really see how it's already starting to be optimized even at this early stage. So the question I'm going to ask is not necessarily a criticism, it's just a sort of clarification. So that remaining, so you've undone all this like extra spaghetti and excess asphalt, but there's like still one strand left, which is that bikeway that intersects the Arch and West Drive. So I'm just wondering, like, why is that? You know, you're trying to sort of strengthen the park to the center of the plaza and make it really pedestrian and green and get rid of this hardscape and paving, but why leave, and like just that one piece still for the bikes?
So you're talking about this connection?
No,
This piece here.
I mean, I understand like it's better for bikes, but
Mhm.
the big picture, like why would you leave that one piece there still?
Yeah, especially from a bike routing perspective, this is a very complex like hub of the entire bike network. So people are coming out of the park. Prospect Park has like a huge cycling location. So people come out of the park and they need to connect to their other locations, but also the kind of cross Brooklyn traffic is very high. So Eastern Parkway is part of the historic Greenway network. It comes in and then it crosses to then go to parts west in the larger network. So I think that is like the last remaining kind of like vehicle type of space that is between the park and the Arch. But
Why would you just go all the way and just like
we also assume,
getting rid of all the conflicts?
even if we remove it, that there will be bikes here because you have the entrance and the mouth of Prospect Park. So we want to make sure that they have a dedicated space because they will be there.
I think what makes it a bit challenging is that, but also the fact that the two lanes that bring you into the park cut the plaza in half. And specifically that rendering that you showed where the trees are aligned to frame the arc kind of gets weakened by the two bike lanes because, you know, on a busy day, this is, I mean, people are not going to stay on the bike lane, pedestrians are going to step on the bike lane, kids are going to be in the middle of the way. So I think that's the one thing that I would ask if there's a way to rethink it, even if the bike lane needs to be between the arc and the plaza because of the route you mentioned. Could these two lanes maybe go along the sides? Yeah, go back to the plan. Because they just really cut the possibilities of the plaza and also thinking ahead of the permanent design, right? This really cuts it in half. If you could come at least like that.
Yeah.
And like that, it would open up the space to be a lot stronger.
Yeah, I would definitely say that is still the one part that needs more thought. Yeah,
I
we've
think
gone back and forth on it.
definitely, and then also thinking if there's no way around this, and I could see why there couldn't be a way around it, what is the treatment of that bike lane? So again, there's more awareness between cyclists and pedestrians, especially when you see on a Saturday morning, like tons of people crossing the street over there.
Yeah, that's great. And these are exactly the kind of comments that we're hoping to get. So we can take that back and further refine.
Like here,
I think it is a challenge of bike behavior, right? Like ultimately cyclists are going to want to go the shortest distance. And so we have to just balance that. Again, we could take a look at it, but I don't want to, I think we don't want to create a lane that ultimately nobody uses and they just cut in where pedestrians. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a piece. Again, we'll take a closer look at this, and again, closer to the park may be desirable, especially because you still have people coming from Prospect Park West as well, right? Like there's
That's a
so
problem.
it's a big confluence of where people are trying to move through this space.
I mean, I wonder, one of the options you presented, I think it was option 3, it kind of created a semicircular planting bed around the plaza, creating an interior space. What I think was successful about that study is that it did create a sense of separation from the bike lane and the plaza, that maybe the bike lane needs to be there. Maybe that's a positive thing to at least screen it, create a clear differencing of the modes while still framing the views that are critical.
Is that visible in the studies that you showed? Yes. Can
Yeah,
we go
back to.
You have the flickers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We can't-
I didn't realize it was the actual clicker.
If James could do it.
It's before that, there was a slide that had the 3 studies.
There was like the very end.
40s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's look at that.
Keep going.
This one.
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here, if you think about if you were to close this planting bed just a little bit more while still keeping that view corridor, it could help separate those modes if that bike lane needed to be there.
Mhm.
Like right now, it just seems like it's it's a little bit too merged together.
Yeah, well, that's, again, I think this is an area that we
Yeah.
can definitely take a much closer look
100%.
at.
Since I'm talking other pieces of feedback, I take this all the time to go from Union Street down to Flatbush. That stoplight is the worst in the world. You can get stuck there for half an hour and not move. This is gonna make it worse. I'm completely in support of this proposal, but I am just curious if you're also considering very pointed traffic signal
So
changes.
it won't make it worse, but it won't make it better. So what we're actually able to do is with people coming off of Union, right now, wait, this is Union, coming off of Union, you're held mostly because you're waiting on Flatbush.
Mhm.
Flatbush will be over here, you'll get more green time. So we might actually be able to improve the processing on Union. And what we can also do is everyone waits at this light
Mhm.
and queues all the way back on Union. We're able to pull people into the plaza to have you
Okay.
queue at multiple spots, so we can disperse the problem. It will not, it probably won't be better, but it shouldn't be worse.
On a Saturday morning, nothing's better, but yes, it's just a very sticky point
Yes.
in the whole network.
Yes.
Other comments?
And keep going.
Okay.
So, and let's stay on this slide, because I think this slide is great. I think you really pointed to all the key, both tenants, but also challenges of the area, the insane amount of different materials, the different mixes between historic materials and none, the fact that there's also Parks Department vocabulary, DOT vocabulary, historic vocabulary. So I think this presents a really strong design challenge, because this is a really important place. And I don't think picking up just one single design vocabulary is going to work, right? Like, it needs to blend with everything. But I also would strongly caution doing a design style that's too contemporary, because it will feel really, really out of place. So I think, everything you said, creating spaces for social gathering, looking at strong paving as a way to guide your way through, greening, framing the views are all really important things. How they manifest themselves, I think, is going to be the bigger question, and how you balance creating a new space with the mix mash of historic stuff around here. I do think out of all of the schemes, even though you presented one that's a mix of this and this, I actually think this one is much stronger, because with the planting, it creates a new space that connects to Prospect Park and Grand Army Plaza, but it can also stand on its own. And given the conflicts of all of these other elements, it might be actually a very strategic move to kind of create this little enclave within everything else. I think the merger, the vegetation gets a little bit too thin, and it loses that kind of holding of the boundaries that I think is very successful.
Yeah, I would say the community really responded to these two, mostly from we like plantings and we like trees. I think those are like the two big takeaways, and how we really bolster those two ideas.
And we have been having, I think, really helpful conversations with both Prospect Park Alliance's archivist in terms of understanding the history of this space, as well as initial conversations with LPC staff. And we'll be talking with LPC staff further as well, just to try to understand really what is the significant historic pieces here that we absolutely must sort of be cognizant about, versus where can we start to think about that evolution and how it works together.
So I'm going to summarize, but before I do, I just want to add that I also agree with Isabel that I think that scheme that the community most embraced is very successful. And I would urge you to, and I know you haven't got to this point yet, to think about the materials by use specifically, so that becomes like very much the gathering material as opposed to circulating, and that I'm sure you already have this in mind, but in the same way that the like north end of Union Square was designed specifically to house a market, and there are places for stanchions and washing things and whatever, would be something I think to consider here, because that market is beloved.
Yep.
So, okay, so when you come back, and we look forward to seeing this as it moves forward. I think we would love to see you rethink the way that the bike lanes cut through that South Plaza. And both, you know, going north, the bike lanes that are going north-south, but maybe even the ones that go between the arch and the plaza. It may be that there, as you said earlier, like maybe there's not a better way to do that, but I think we're asking you to just think about that and try to minimize that kind of conflict, and maybe this design here helps with the planting, defining the interior. And then, yes, just the design vocabulary, like I also agree with Isabel that I don't know that one vocabulary will work. But I think in a certain way, like the way we circulate now and the kind of care that you all are giving to bike lanes, that's new. We have really done that as a city, so maybe that's the place for the newer materiality. Whereas the market, which we have done for a long time, maybe there it's like you just go with, well, we, you know, cobbles or whatever you're pulling up from the site. Yeah,
Deborah, can I just add one
Please.
more comment on
Yeah.
that sort of material selection? I mean, we're so preliminary and you're gonna do all this
Yes.
research and come back with options and things. But this is such a prominent site, such a beautiful opportunity. And so I think, you know, when you are looking at the material selections and the cost of construction and, you know, something that might take more like hand placement or be a higher initial cost per square foot, like I think there might be opportunities here to sort of put that extra cost and attention to like some very prominent spaces and, you know, I mean, it's just such an expanse. It's gonna cost a lot of money, but
Yeah.
you know, no one wants to see a sea of asphalt or stuff that's just, you know, because it's so easy to maintain or whatever that I think this is the place to put that kind of attention.
yeah. I imagine you've looked at this, but have you looked at the Reinventing Grand Army Plaza, the Design Trust publication? Do you know it?
Yes.
Okay, because it does illuminate a bunch of different circulation ideas. It's probably less developed at this point than these, but there may be some things that we said there. Okay, so with that, we are very excited to see this move forward. We really appreciate the work that you're doing to engage this community and to really think through like what makes sense for the way we live now. Really appreciate that. And we're excited to see the next phase. So congratulations. And this concludes our meeting. The public meeting is now adjourned.